Good day, everyone. This is another in a long series of OSHA online local rules meetings. This one is on Offside. Our presenter tonight is a longtime state high school tournament referee, Maggie Short. She has been a college official for many years, participated in two NCAA Final Fours. She has been a national assistant referee for U.S. Soccer for 4 years and works in the National Women's Soccer League. Without further ado, I'd like to present Maggie Short.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate the opportunity to present to everyone today. We will be talking about offside. So to give you a review, because it's always good to review the elements of offside. First and foremost, you have to be in an offside. You have three decisions or three steps you're making in an offside decision or call. Is the player in an offside position? Is the player involved in active play, and how? And then you're going to make your decision of whether you're going to raise the flag to indicate offside or keep the flag down and go on to the next play. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about offside position. There are three elements to offside position. Where is the opponent, or where is the player on the field? Are they in the opponent's half of the field? What part of the body is in the opponent's half of the field? Is it the head, body, or feet? Is it the arms or head, hands or arms? Those you would not count. Closer to the goal line than the second last opponent, or the ball. Remember, if you're even with the ball, even with second last opponent, on the halfway line, or the ball is played by an opponent, those offset the offside. They are not in an offside position. So then we move on to, you've determined that the player is in an offside position. What happens next? So you're going to penalize them for offside when these occur. If first they are in the offside position, that's check one. At the moment the ball was touched and played by a teammate, they were in that offside position. And then when they become involved in active play. So the player shall not be penalized for offside when they receive the ball directly from a goal kick, corner kick, or throw in. Remember those, because you will inevitably at one point in time have to remember, yes, they were in position, but they received it from a throw in, or they received it from a goal kick. And if they receive the ball directly from that corner kick, now as soon as it touches somebody else, then you reset your offside line. So we talked about active play. Here are the elements of active play. So the player in the offside position is interfering with play, interfering with an opponent, or gaining an advantage. What do those mean? So interfering with play is when they touch or play the ball. Interfering with an opponent deals with line of vision. Are they blocking the sight of the goalkeeper? Are they challenging the opponent for the ball? Are they clearly attempting to play with an impact that, whether there's a challenge or not, they impacted the ability for that opposing team to make a play? And as in that action has that impact. Gaining an advantage, we talk about rebound, off the goalkeeper, off the post. Deflection, so if a defender deflects it, deliberate save, and interfering. And then the deliberate play is a separate thing we will talk about in a little bit. So the player is penalized for an offside offense when all these occur. They are in the offside position at the moment the ball was touched or played by a teammate and becomes involved in active play. So FIFA, which I know this is a high school presentation, but a lot of the rules that we follow in high school do derive from what FIFA has set forth. FIFA has considerations that they want you to have going through your mind when you're making your offside decision. So, are you in a good position to judge the offside? Is the player in an offside position? If so, which part of the body? We talked about the hands or the arms. They are not considered a playable part of the body. Therefore, they aren't considered when you're considering the player in an offside position. Does the player in the offside position interfere with play by playing or touching the ball? That's one of your classic, the ball was passed to them, they were already in the offside position. As soon as they touch the ball, that's when you raise the flag. Does the player in an offside position interfere with the goalkeeper? If so, how? Are they standing in front of them? Are they distracting them because they are standing 2 feet in front and the goalkeeper can't see? That's what we consider there. Does the player in an offside position interfere with an opponent? Are they challenging for the ball? Does the player with an offside position gain an advantage by playing the ball or interfering with an opponent? Will the ball go to the player who was previously in an offside position after a rebound off the post, crossbar, or a save from an opponent? We will talk about the difference between a deliberate save by a defender and a deliberate play by a defender. A lot of it has to do with proximity to the goal and whether the shot was going on frame or not. Does the assistant referee adopt the wait and see technique? So patience is key a lot of times with being an assistant referee. There are times that you're going to hold that flag because you need to see who exactly is going to play that ball. That's when we talk about wait and see. Is there any other opponent in onside position who has a chance to play the ball? Again, that follows right with the wait and see. If you have one player on, one player in an offside position, you're going to wait to see who plays the ball before you raise your flag or keep the flag down. Does the assistant referee give the benefit to the attacking player when the defender and attacker are in line? So we come back to, are they even with the second to last opponent or even the ball? And can the field markings help the assistant referee make a correct decision? So many of our fields in Ohio now have football lines. They're great for helping judge whether a player was on or off. If you can tell that they were on the 5 and then the opponent was a step ahead of them on the 6, you know that they were in an offside position. So I want to go through some diagrams and just kind of give you that visual of the elements of offside offenses. So interfering with play, this is an obvious one. And I think you've all probably seen this before. Teammate plays the ball. They're behind the second, they're nearer to the goal line than the goalkeeper and second last opponent. That's a pretty easy one. I want to also make sure that you understand when they're not interfering with play. So despite A being in an offside position, that doesn't mean they interfered with play just by being there. Being in an offside position is not an offense in and of itself. They did not play the ball in this case. The shot went directly in. They didn't impact the goalkeeper's ability to play the ball. They didn't challenge an opponent for the ball. We count this as a goal. So this was something that came out of a couple of years ago that NFHS wanted to make sure that it was emphasized. And this is when the player in an offside position comes back into their own half to receive the ball. So they started when the ball was kicked. They started in an offside position, but then they came back to receive it. They should be flagged for an offside infraction, and the ball will be placed where they received it. So before, we would put it on half, or we'd put it where they started their run, where they were in position. Now they want the ball in that half of the field where the ball was received. So here's another example of interfering with play. So A is in an offside position behind the second to last opponent, who, as you can see, even though far away, is probably a little bit closer than you think on the far side. This is actually going to be one of your most typical offside decisions in a high school game. You've got a near side attacker, far side opponent, and you're going to have to be able to see that offside, where that offside position is, and that they then go get the ball when the ball was kicked, or after the ball was kicked. So again, making that snapshot of that opponent being in an offside position, and from this slide you can see it's not by very much, but you use the field markings they're closer to the 18 than that second to last opponent. So then we move on to interfering with an opponent. So before you hit interfering with play, that's the touch, that's the play of the ball. Here is where you are possibly interfering via blocking the line of sight, like what you have in this particular slide. So player A, standing right in front of the goalkeeper, teammate shoots the ball. Is that goalkeeper going to be able to see that ball in time to be able to make that play? In this case, no. So we would raise the flag for offside. In this one, we're challenging for the ball or impacting the defender's ability to play that ball. So while the teammate is trying to get the ball to player A, who is in an offside position, as soon as they move that close to player B on the other team, then they have interfered with that opponent's ability to play that ball. So then we move on to gaining an advantage. This is where we have rebound, deliberate save, and in this case, player A shoots the ball, goalkeeper makes the save, player B, who was in offside position when that shot was taken, gathers the ball, and as soon as they touch it, offside should be called for gaining an advantage. In this case, we have a deflection. So just because it glances off the defender doesn't necessarily mean they've deliberately played that ball. Look at the space, look at the time of, and the ability for that player to play that ball, and then you'll be able to determine whether or not it was deliberate versus a deflection. The other thing, and we'll talk about this later, is the referee needs to also help in this case. So for this slide, player A looks like they may be taking a shot. It glances off of the opponent, goes to player B in the offside position. They should be flagged for offside for gaining an advantage. So I want to go in through some keys to success. And in my years of experience, I've used these and really kind of I want to make sure that you understand there are certain plays in the game that are harder to judge offside and sometimes easier, but there are key times that you will be super laser focused on the offside decision, one of which is set pieces. So as an AR, your attention can be divided between assisting the referee and managing the players and identifying an offside position. So if you've got players tussling in the middle of the field with a free kick that's about 20 some odd yards out, you're probably going to be divided a little bit. But first and foremost, your responsibility is offside and making sure that you are in position. So you want to know where and when to focus on it. So identify your second to last defender and the attackers. Keep track of them. Talk to yourself. Keep track in your head. Number 2's off, number 2's on, number 2's off. Something to that effect. Or number 4 is keeping them on. Making note of the numbers, who was on, who was off, who the second to last defender is, that's going to be key. Because if you can give them that information when that decision is going to be questioned, because let's be honest, a lot of players will question your offside decisions. And you can tell them, hey, number 12 kept them on. They don't look at you anymore. They look at number 12. And it should be on number 12 that they say, hey, why weren't you even with the rest of us? Why did you keep them on? The biggest thing, another key element on set pieces is establishing proper position. You're going to be going back and forth. You need to be, they're an easy place to make sure you're in line. A lot of times defenses will line up on either the 18, around the 12, around the 6. You'll use the context clues of what the players are saying. Hey, hold the 18. That's a really good way to say, I should be in the vicinity of the 18. Also be prepared for that defender to take that last step back right before the ball is kicked. As soon as they drop, if that ball hasn't been kicked yet, you have to know whether or not they have kept everybody on. Because a lot of times that's exactly what happens is defender takes 2 steps back, that attacker that was in an offside position at the last second all of a sudden becomes even or on, and then, or becomes even or even a step on, then you keep your flag down. It's key to be on your toes. You have to be aware. You can't be flat-footed on a set piece, because inevitably, if you are, you're going to be behind play as soon as that ball is kicked. Another key area that a lot of ARs get caught in a place where they don't know whether it was offside or not. And I think we've probably all been in that case where did that ball come from? And a lot of times, or where did that attacker come from? A lot of times that's played, or that scenario comes up on a long ball from a defender that kicks it 60 yards. And then the other thing is you have to be on your toes and be prepared for that long ball, because if you're not, just like on the set piece, you're going to be caught on your heels, and next thing you know, you're going to be behind play. So a couple of things to keep in mind. You need to be prepared. Broaden your view to see the whole field. Don't just zero focus in on, is the attacker in front of me on or off? Are they in position? Or are they not in position? If you start doing that and you broaden your field, you're going to be able to see so much more and be able to anticipate. Read the body language of the person with the ball. If that teammate starts leaning back and looks like they're going to kick it really far, you usually should be able to tell. That's when you have to know, okay, I have to make my decision when that ball is kicked and be prepared to run and sprint with that attacker, because if they're on, I have to keep up with it. And then determine, did the attacker break early? So they may be anticipating that long ball as well, but if they are, then they could also start running early, and as soon as the ball is kicked, they're already 5 yards offside. And then, of course, in that scenario, you also have to realize that everybody's going to see where they received the ball, not necessarily where they were when the ball was kicked. When you have super fast forwards and maybe some slower defenders, these long balls can make it look like they were 10 yards offside and they were actually 5 yards on. They just happened to be that fast. Positioning. You need to take that snapshot of when the ball is kicked. Look and listen. So a lot of times in stadiums, sometimes the crowd is a little bit loud. You might not be able to hear it, but a lot of times on a game that like this, you'll be able to hear when the ball is kicked. The acoustics in the stadiums can sometimes be your best friend. Use the field markings to your advantage again. See where they started that run. If you've got football lines, you should be able to take that snapshot and say, I know their foot was on this line, and I know that the defender's foot was on this line. When you have that snapshot, you're going to be able to say, was that position? If so, if they were on, you keep going. If they were off because they stepped too early, then you put the flag up as soon as they touch the ball. But field markings are a really great way to make sure that you've nailed that call. Be aware. By the time the attacker becomes involved, they may be 10 yards ahead of everybody else. We already touched on that, but that's when you're going to hear the biggest roar from the crowd. Don't get disturbed by it. Don't get distracted by it. Know your snapshot and make sure that you are confident in your call. If you don't know because you are looking somewhere else or doing something, looking at a possible ball in and out, you have to keep your flag down. You have to be 110% in raising that flag for the offside. And know the number of the deepest defender. That's going to be another key way that if they kept them on, you can say, hey, you were a step. I've used that many times. So player involvement. This is where teamwork and communication come into play. And I know a lot of you aren't necessarily going to have communication devices, but some of you will. You need to make sure that you're talking about this before the game. How are you going to communicate? How are you going to make sure that everybody knows who played the ball and who was involved? So there are two pieces of the puzzle: offside position and involvement. And this is where we talk about, again, on a set piece. If you've got a set piece that comes in and 3 people go for a header and you can't tell who that was that touched that ball as an AR because of either depth or because the crowd, you just couldn't see, then the referee really has to know who touched that ball. Because if it came off of an attacker and goes directly to somebody that was in the offside position, then obviously we have offside. So you have to ask yourself, who can best see the player? So if you can see it, then by all means, great. You can make that decision by yourself. If you can't, then you have to make sure that you have talked to the referee about what course of action you want to take in your pregame. So who can best see if the attacker is in offside position? Well, that's the AR. You are the only person as an AR who can tell, unless it's really obvious, who was in an offside position. And if the referee is saying that whether they were in the offside position, then that could be a 2-man system. That could be something to the effect of, the ball was that deep that you happen to be lined up across from your AR. It happens rarely, but it does happen. And then who can see proximity to the opponents? So depth perception. If a player on the far side of the field from an AR, you could get a little bit confused as to whether or not that attacker who is coming from an offside position to possibly challenge for a ball, whether they actually had an effect on that defender's ability to play that ball clearly. So the referee in that standpoint would also have to help you have the piece of the puzzle that the attacker was in offside position. The referee has the ability to say, okay, they didn't have an impact on that opponent, or they really weren't that close. And then we already talked about who can last played the ball, and who can judge deliberate versus a deflection. So a few years ago, this was a big debate, and a lot of people call it an offside rule change. Wasn't necessarily a change, it was a clarification. But we do now have to concentrate on, was this a deliberate play by a defender, or was this a deflection? There's some components that you should always keep in mind when you're making that decision. So deliberate play, did they have time? Did they have balance? Did they make an action toward the ball that was more than a kind of reactionary action? A deflection is where you've got that player that kind of cringes or at the last minute puts their leg out. They really didn't have time. It was a natural play. They didn't really make an attempt to parry the ball or make sure that they get in. They stop that ball. So you have to consider, where is the ball coming from? What proximity? Was it close? Was it far away? Also with deliberate versus deflection, is there an offside position? Obviously, if there's no offside position, you're going to keep your flag down. But if there was an offside position, did they gain an advantage from it? After the pass is made, what action is taken and by whom? So if the defender plays the ball, did they move toward it? Did they see and expect the ball? Did they make a deliberate act to play the ball? Did they have the time? Did they have that balance? And were they ready to play? If any of those elements are not in there, you're error toward the side of deflection. And then the proximity of the attacker again, did they impact the defender's ability to play that ball? So some common mistakes that ARs make on offside decisions. They get caught out of position. And how do you get caught out of position? A lot of times it comes down to ball watching. You get so caught up in what's going on in the game, and then all of a sudden something turns and you go, oh, I don't know where that attacker was. So you always have to be able to kind of do that cadence of checking in on the attacker, checking in on the defender. Do I have anybody in an offside position? Do I have anybody close to an offside position? And then where's the ball? Where's the referee? It's kind of a constant dance to where you are checking, okay, defender, attacker, where's the ball? Where's the referee? Is it going to be coming down here shortly? Do I have any boundary line decisions that I have to make? As an AR, you're constantly changing what you're concentrating on. So the other thing is, if you ball watch, a lot of times your legs are going to stop because you'll become stagnant. You have to continually move with the second to last defender or goalkeeper or opponent. A lot of times it's a defender, but it can be a goalkeeper. And anticipate where the ball is, where it's going to go. This will help you from getting caught ball watching. So if you're constantly looking, do I need to move up with the defender? Are they staying still? It's when they stay still that you can get that. You'll fall into that trap of possibly ball watching. Lack of focus or concentration is another way that we get ourselves in trouble as ARs. You're looking at the wrong spot on the field at the wrong time. I was looking, down the boundary line and I had an offside decision. You can't look at both things at the same time a lot of times, not unless you step back and have it in your peripheral. But anticipate the play. Look at what's going on. That way you'll be able to be comfortable looking, making sure that you're not looking at the wrong spot. Don't let distractions get in your way. A lot of times if you are in front of a bench and you have players behind you, you have subs going on, you have a coach in your ear, that kind of stuff. Those things can all play factors in you missing an offside decision. You need to learn how to tune it out. A lot of techniques that I've used is, hey coach, if you're in my way, I might not be able to call this offside. And if it's their team that's defending, even better. Or if their team is attacking, hey coach, I might accidentally not realize that your player was in an onside position. I might get this wrong because I'm out of position. And we all know that even the slightest bit of an angle can make it look like they are off when they're actually on. So again, we go back to the positioning and the concentration on your part as the assistant referee to make sure you're in line with the second last opponent and making sure that you're even with them. Because again, your viewpoint could be skewed, even being off a couple of steps. And then misjudging who played the ball. Again, we went back to this is somewhat the same element of deflection versus a deliberate play. Keep a dialogue in your head. Who played the ball last? This lack of concentration or lack of focus will lead you to potentially call offside on a player that played the ball to himself. That it has happened because you've lost track. You didn't realize that because the ball went forward and it looked like it came from a teammate, but it actually came from number 12 because number 18, who you thought was going to make the run, didn't. Number 12 realized that. They ran on and decided to collect the ball again. They were allowed to pass it to themselves. They were behind the ball when they passed it. So keep those in mind. Keeping that constant dialogue in your head. Who touched it last? Who did it go to? And then, do you need help from the referee on who touched the ball? So I'll take this time to make sure that you understand that if you don't know and a ball goes in the back of the net, you have to do your due diligence. Stand at attention. Do not count that goal. Do not restart that game until you've sorted out whether or not, who touched the ball last. Was it a deliberate play? Was it touched by a defender? You need to have that conversation with the referee. Whether it's over communication devices or not, you have to make sure that you cover all bases on that. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention was flash lag. So this is a term that has been brought up probably over the last 5 to 10 years to where your brain cannot process everything that's going on at the same time. Ball is kicked, person in position, everything else going on that you're processing. There's a thing that you will actually take your snapshot a step later than what really actually happened. So you're going to go, in my snapshot, their foot was on the 5. And I've had enough video review after the fact. NWSL doesn't have a video review like MLS does. But, you know, I will say, oh, I know they were clearly offside. Easy. 2 yards offside. I go back and look at the video, and they were like a step off. But it was not that, it was a lot closer than what I thought it was. If you ever have the opportunity to go through and do drills on offside decisions, I recommend doing that, whether in person when we can get together again, and or on video. So a lot of times this flash lag will kick in when we have fast breaks, and when we've actually got an attacker coming from an offside position to collect the ball. And I wanted to make sure, did find a YouTube channel or a clip that actually had some of these that you can watch. So I found these on YouTube, and I thought they were a really good demonstration of drills that you can do when we can actually get in person again. And as it looks like right now, high school soccer is going to be going forward. So we may be able to socially distance and actually get some offside drills going on. But see how when the ball is kicked, where that assistant referee has to be, and then where that attacker was. But when they received it, they came back for it. So flashlight can play a factor in this. This is also really good for your ability to keep up with the second last defender and really have a good sense of how quick everything is. See how they are on their toes, they're waiting. And that is a really good, even, actually still step on side. And see all those football lines, you can use those to your advantage. You can see where their step was. Now see, that is offside. But a lot of people are gonna see, was that offside? They're gonna, so when they broke for the ball, bingo. They will look at where their foot was, and they're using that football line as your ability to, even if you are a step off. I know we said that, you know, being a step or two off can hurt your view, but this is where you can almost make up for it by using those football lines as your guide. So in this case, I would advise that you, if you have a chance to do these types of drills, if you have somebody that can also do a video of it, so you can go back and review and see how you did. And then of course you have the ball that's in the air. Those are always tough as well. So again, you only need 5 people, just a couple of players. Oh, I want to see that one again. How many think that person was actually on? See, the assistant referee isn't keeping up with that defender. So that's where we can actually see how much the football lines can actually help. They didn't help us. And where did they receive the ball? That ball was long getting there, right? But if you go back, you see so 2 decisions in a row. And on the second one, you have to be prepared. It's a constant moving line, as you well know, of whether or not they were in position and where they received it. So they start to make that break. and they're a little bit early, and then when they receive the ball, they look well offside. But how close was that actually to being? See, that one's non, but everybody's going to see that person running through. They're going to see when they receive the ball and getting past that defense, and you have to be prepared to take a little bit of heat for keeping that flag down on those kinds of calls. Again, they were well on. You can see they're on the 34, and the defender was on the 33. So if you would like, I think that YouTube was just a simple search, assistant referee practice, and you can find this and take a look and run through it for look at all the different scenarios. So I wanted to show a few video clips as we wrap some things up in terms of offside decisions. So 3 clips from FIFA, all showing examples of decisions that are pretty close, but I wanted to see if you, on the first take, I'll let you watch it through, and then I will play it again and give some commentary. Okay. So as you can see, and FIFA did a great job of giving us the still frame later in this clip. But even though we don't have football lines, we do have grass cut lines, and those are always great to use as well. So this is where we are looking at how we could possibly miss something because a ball is coming from a good distance away. Not a great distance, but a fairly good distance away. And see how tight it is. And at the time that the ball was kicked, it was very subtle, but this defender stepped up just ever so slightly to put this player in an offside position. And this is what we would have as an example of interfering with play. Okay. I'm going to go to my next one. Okay, so remember, we want to make sure that the very first thing that we establish is, was there an offside position? So we'll play it again. So when the ball was kicked, and we'll get another shot at this, was there an offside position? Can't tell from that angle. And of course this angle, because you can't see when the ball was kicked. This one. So you can already see that part of the leg is starting to gravitate in that offside position. And look right where they are. There's a great big context clue that you can use as a visual to help you make your decision on the offside position, and then whether or not they were interfering with an opponent and their ability to play this ball. Now, just because the opponent wins the ball doesn't necessarily mean that they had a fair chance to play that ball. So in this clip, we want to make sure that you understand that this is interfering with an opponent. We will go back to one's a little bit trickier. But you could probably understand if we've already gone through interfering with play and interfering with an opponent, what the next decision is for the offside. We are not judging whether or not this is handling or whether there was a foul that took place. We are simply looking at a player who receives the ball after a shot was taken, and that would be an indication of a deliberate save, by the way. We'll go through one more time. This is where we were talking about keeping track of the players and where the ball came from. There's a great Bengu, goes to a teammate who's well on because they're behind 4 or 5 defenders and behind the ball. So there's no offside decision to make on that because of position. Now it comes off of a defender, but where was that attacker who just came back for the ball? Where were they? They were actually off the field, but they are judged to be considered on the line and therefore ahead of and nearer to the goal line than everybody else. Now, if you had the goalkeeper and a defender both on the goal line as well, then we're looking at a different scenario, but they did not. Keep watching. So, like I said, we are not judging whether or not this was handling or a foul or any sort of PK decision. It's not. You can see that they're clearly looking to stop that shot in a fair manner, even making sure their arm is behind them so that it's nearly impossible to think was a handball. But that player, what did they do? They gained an advantage from that position off of a deliberate save by a defender. So that actually wraps our presentation. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've learned some things. More than happy to answer any questions. If you want to reach out to me, again, my name is Maggie Short. My information is, you can probably get it through my OHSAA, or if you want to contact Don, he can get a hold of me as well. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maggie. That was a great presentation. I hope everybody learns a lot and remembers the nice things that you told us about how to be better at calling offside and refraining from calling it offside. A gentle reminder to everyone who's viewing out there, within 4 days after this presentation is removed from the OHSAA website, you can start to look for local rules meeting attendance credit on your My OHSAA account. Thank you very much. I hope to see you out on the field.